Hello there history buffs, and welcome back to the channel. On this day, the 30th of August 1548, Dowager Queen of England, Katherine Parr, gave birth to her only child, a daughter, Mary, at Sudeley Castle. Katherine Parr was born in around 1512, likely at Kendal Castle in Westmoreland. She was one of 3 children born to Sir Thomas Parr and Maud Green. Her father was a prominent figure in the court of King Henry VIII, serving as Master of the Wards and Comptroller of the King's household. Her mother, a lady-in-waiting to Queen Catherine of Aragon, named her eldest daughter after the Queen. Catherine's early life was shaped by the turbulent times of the English Reformation and the complex politics of Henry VIII's court. Catherine's father, Thomas, died when she was 5 in 1517. This left her mother, Maud, the job of raising her 3 children by herself. Maud was a pious woman, and she taught her children to love God, and religious studies became a big part of their education. But she also made sure that her children had a high standard of education, and as such, Catherine was taught to read Latin, speak French, and from here developed an inquisitive mind and a love for learning. You can see Maud's influence on Catherine when it is her turn to supervise the education of her stepchildren, Elizabeth and Edward. In 1526, Catherine married her first husband, Edward Burr, a marriage arranged by her mother. In her book, 6 Wives of King Henry VIII, Alison Weir wrote, quote, "He, Edward, was a member of a distinguished family and had been born in 1463 or thereabouts, making him 63 in 1526, old even by modern standards to marry a girl of 14. This marriage would not last long, as Edward Burr would die in 1528, making Catherine a widow at the age of 16. I've seen some sources state that Edward's death is unknown. I'm just going off of what Weir wrote in her book. Either way, he must have died before 1533, because despite there not being a record of the date of the wedding, Catherine had indeed been remarried by 1533 to John Neville, Lord Latimer. Neville was older and brought Catherine into the midst of the Pilgrimage of Grace, a major Catholic uprising against King Henry VIII's dissolution of the monasteries. Despite her husband's involvement in the Pilgrimage of Grace, the Latimers seem to have held a good relationship with the king, and were at court often. As the lady of the Latimer estate, she managed household affairs and cared for her stepchildren. The end of 1541 saw the downfall of King Henry VIII's current wife and queen, Catherine Howard, who was executed during February of 1542. It would be in the latter half of that year that Lord Latimer would become quite ill. His illness would continue into the following year, where on the 16th of February, the king gave Catherine a gift of pleats and sleeves. The Exchequer accounts also record that Henry ordered gowns in the Italian style for Catherine. Catherine did not dare return such luxurious gifts from the king, even if it was a bit unusual for a married woman, yes married, as Lord Latimer hadn't croaked it just yet, to receive such gifts. Latimer died in March 1543, leaving Catherine a wealthy widow with a considerable social standing. After Latimer's death, Catherine had hoped that she may choose a husband of her choice. She has a poor choice in men, but either way her choice was Thomas Seymour, the brother of the king's 3rd wife, Jane Seymour. However, the king had other plans. He had waited to pursue Catherine out of respect for her dead husband, but he had decided that Catherine should be wife number 6, and she could not refuse. Katherine wrote to Seymour, "As truly as God is God, my mind was fully bent to marry you before any man I knew. Howbeit, God withstood my will therein most vehemently for a time, and through his grace and goodness made that possible which seemeth to me most unpossible, to renounce utterly my own will, and to follow his will most willingly." They married on the 12th of July, 1543, at Hampton Court Palace, making her Henry's sixth and final wife. As Queen, Catherine played a pivotal role in Henry's court. She acted as regent when Henry campaigned in France in 1544, proving that she could manage the kingdom effectively. Catherine was deeply religious and an advocate of the English Reformation. She promoted the publication of religious texts in English, and even authored a book, well actually she did too, Prayers or Meditations, the first book published by an English queen under her own name. Catherine's influence extended beyond her regency. She was a stepmother to Henry's three children, Mary, Elizabeth, and Edward. Her nurturing relationship with them, especially Elizabeth, significantly impacted their futures. She ensured they received a Protestant education and advocated for their rights for the succession. However, her Protestant sympathies and intellectual engagements sometimes put her at odds with conservative factions at court. In 1546, her enemies accused her of heresy, nearly leading to her arrest. Catherine's quick wit and Henry's enduring affection for her helped her navigate these dangerous waters and avoid prosecution. Following Henry's death in January 1547, she was finally free to marry the man of her choice. It had only taken her 3 marriages, and now she had the title of Dowager Queen to go with it. She quickly remarried to Thomas Seymour, a union based on mutual affection. Their marriage, however, was fraught with political intrigue and personal drama, especially concerning Seymour's ambitions and flirtations with the young Lady Elizabeth. On the 30th of August 1548, Katherine Parr gave birth to her first child, a daughter, at Sudeley Castle. The girl was named Mary after her stepsister, the Lady Mary. The birth had taken a great toll on Catherine, and it was a difficult one, and left the former queen weak afterwards. Despite this, Catherine's physicians and midwife were hopeful that she would make a full recovery. Naturally, her husband Thomas was disappointed about having a girl, but before long, as so often happens, he was doting on his daughter, and he sent the news of her birth by courier to his brother Edward Seymour, who at this time was Lord Protector for their nephew, King Edward VI. A week later, and Catherine is still in bed fighting fever and hallucinations. As the days went on, it became more obvious that Catherine was not going to recover. She spoke of her anguish over Thomas's betrayal with her stepdaughter Elizabeth, something she had tried to hide for so long. But this had obviously troubled her, and in her delirium she could no longer conceal it. Catherine died on the 5th of September 1548 from childbirth complications. Her death was greatly mourned by those she left behind, including her stepchildren. Her husband, Thomas, was executed a year later, leaving their daughter Mary an orphan. Mary was shipped off to live with her mother's friend, Catherine Willoughby, the Dowager Duchess of Suffolk. Her uncle, William Parr, had hinted that he may be willing to take his niece, but only if someone else paid for her. It seems that nobody wanted Mary, as even Catherine Willoughby complained about the expense of this child, and Anne Stanhope, Duchess of Somerset, refused to give any financial support. We don't know what happened to little Mary Seymour, as she seems to have vanished from the records from 1550 onwards, leading historians to speculate that she died at around the age of 2. Thank you for watching today's video. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, have a wonderful day. Bye.